Hi everyone, Mature Simmer here. So back on Misty Hills to do the little bit that needs to get done here, So I'm going to go grab my planter. We're going to be planting cotton on a couple places. So I need the John Deere for that. Alright, connect it up. And we're heading up to 97, 98, so we'll fill up there. I don't need any tenders or anything. So time is about accurate with real time. I just actually hopped into the server to sync. Yesterday it was only 59 degrees for the soil temp, and we need 61 degrees to be able to plant cotton. So where do we stand as we're now in year 78 and what's happening? So at this point I've pretty much gotten the message from the universe that there's not going to be contractors that I regularly will have to help out. In addition to that, with other demands in real life and so forth, my game time has gone down quite a bit, and therefore to allow myself time to do other things, to continue to look at FS22 items as they come out that make sense, and other things like that, play other sims and so forth. Definitely, still want to keep trying the train sim, want to keep making progress on American Truck Simulator, and eventually probably jump over and start doing European Truck Simulator again, because I know Russia's going to be coming out soon. They've been talking about that for probably the better part of 6 to 8 months, so I know that's got to be imminent. So yeah, if what happened on ATS is any indication, before Wyoming was released, we're at the point now with European Truck Simulator that there's definitely a lot more activity with SCS posting items about Russia. Whether it's industries, or I think the last one they did was like monuments and markers, because I guess there's markers in regions and cities and districts and so forth that are concrete and pretty elaborate. So they had a bunch of those that got posted this week. There's just a lot of information, and so that's kind of what started to happen, and then suddenly Wyoming was announced, and hey, it'll be here in a month. So I'm thinking we're getting close with Russia, and so certainly that would be something new. Not that I need a whole lot new, because I just haven't spent nearly as much time in ETS as I have in ATS. And so definitely, I've got plenty to explore there anyway. But that would give us, substantially more landmass and so forth, because, normally I play ETS with Pro Mods, just as they've been doing releases in the 1.4 series, it continues to kind of, ProMods has to be updated. I mean, I guess break ProMods is accurate. Oops. Trying to set up the GPS here as I roll back to the field. And with that, it just means then I'm waiting a few weeks until that's updated, and that's kind of what has caused me to not be doing a lot of ETS, because by the time they update it, then SCS was like coming out with another 1.41, 1.42, so forth, and it just meant I was just doing a lot of waiting. So it was like I might have gotten like a couple days to do something, and then suddenly the game was broken again. So I'm trying to position myself here so I can start up and head up this side of the field. So so that's what I'm looking to do, and so forth. And so I just have a lot less time, and with no contractors, what that's turning into, unfortunately, whether I like it or not, is the reality that unless I want to have a lot of stress trying to get things done within the game here, and I want no ability to really do anything else, I'm trying to get things going. I've turned on the seeder. I'm not trying to lower it. There we go. Whoops, the fertilizer's already running. So that's the one thing with the liquid fert and so forth, is it doesn't stop if you're off the field a little bit. So you still have to be careful. But basically the short story, or not so short, it's taken me forever to get to the point, is I'm just planting 97 and 98 with cotton this year, and that's all I'm putting in the ground, because I don't know that there's realistically much more that I'm going to be able to do without, again, creating a lot of stress or some resentment, I guess, of, hey, I want to be doing something else, or I'm interested in trying this today, but I can't, because the little bit of time I have, I need to devote to jumping back into FSN and working these farms. So what will likely be happening is I'll just be selecting a couple fields each year and planting those and going forward in that way. And probably from the video or series perspective, it's not going to change that much, because what may simply happen is I may just keep the full video of doing all the work and just chat as I go along about, state of the world things, whatever it is. And if folks want to watch me do the work, they can watch me do the work, because the work will be shorter. Now, again, the exception to that is probably going to be when it gets to harvest time, because once again, even on these fields with the cotton harvester, the smaller working width and speed, I guess the speed's the same, it's 6 miles an hour in either harvester. But with both of those things combined, we're probably still talking a couple hours on this field, so going to definitely make that shorter. But for something like this, where I'm planting and fertilizing, and then, when I'm spraying next time, I may just go ahead and let it run and kind of give people more of a true Let's Play without the time lapse or the jump cuts that I've had to be doing in the past. So that's the plan. Because as it is, like I said, I mean, it's less the the work that I'm doing now than it is, the harvesting. And, that's ultimately what it comes down to, is figuring out, all right, what can I do for the harvest and what's realistic. I'm going to get stuck on this tree. I did get clear. All right. I'm not entirely sure. Sorry, I'm suddenly not talking, but I just don't want to miss. Yeah, I think I'm okay. I don't want to miss that point of the field after I popped free of the tree. Now suddenly I was further into the field than I wanted to be. But obviously you can see the GPS lines, and I've got a little bit on this edge of the field that I need to cover, so we'll just go down this way, kind of get the headlands done. And I'll do the bottom when I get down there as well, just because, as we know, with this larger implement, it's harder to turn on this field without getting hung up as well. So we'll get that all taken care of. And so yeah, so hopefully those who were looking for a little bit more of, hey, I just want to watch Farming Simulator, you're going to have that opportunity, at least for the next few episodes, to do that and kind of follow along and see what's happening, because I think at this point, this should be a relatively short amount of work. I don't know that from an episode standpoint it might turn out to be a longer episode than normal, because it might still take me 45 minutes to get everything done, but we'll go and go through that. So yeah, there's really not a lot more on the Y front than that. It's just become the typical battle that I think any gamer has with anything, is how much time do you have to game versus how much time does life responsibilities draw, and so forth. And once again, as I've said before, obviously the choice I make, and the choice I would assume most people make who are trying to be successful in their lives and so forth, is the real life responsibilities have to take precedence over entertainment of any kind, whether it's gaming or watching TV, going to the movies, doing other things. And certainly, with the situation with COVID and all that, a lot of those other things have kind of dried up and haven't been draws on time in real life, so that has been filled with more activity and things like this. But even that, can be modified based on, what needs to happen. And right now, there's just a lot less time, as I said, in general to do things. And so I've got to start to make some decisions based on that. And that's what happens here in FSN because of that situation. So that will probably continue for a while. I can't really see anything on the horizon that suddenly is like, oh, this is a short-term thing, because that's just kind of not how life works. I mean, there's not a lot of, it's not like I've got life events coming up that would be causing long-term changes or something. I'm older, past the point of, it's not like we're suddenly going to have a new kid and have all those responsibilities. That's not going to change. I'm certainly happy where I'm at working and continue to do that, so I know that will be the same type of thing. But regardless of what kind of job it was, it would be similar. because, if you're working full-time, you're working full-time, and, there's a little bit of variation there in time, but nothing substantial. And, then I've got other volunteer activities I do, other things I'm involved with that take some time, and all of that puts us in the situation that I'm in, where I've just got less time to do stuff. So, and I've got ideas or things that, hey, I'd like to do some single player, whether it's continuing one of the series I have here, pivoting to something else, because there's always potentially maps that come up that I'm like, oh, this might be kind of fun. And it's just, some of what even has happened there is what's been driving this is, I did a couple episodes of Hastings, and then when I had to potentially restart that because of the issues that were happening, and so there was a new version of the map, which I knew was coming in the beginning. I mean, it's no one's fault but my own for starting the series early, but then suddenly being faced with, well, I get to spend another 10 or 12 hours redoing what I just did just to catch up. That suddenly kind of folded because of that, because it's not really something that I'm jumping up and down looking forward to doing. So there were definitely, I'm sure, some of you that were excited about the Hastings series that I was doing, and, oh, this will be fun, and it turned into 2 episodes, and that was it. Doesn't mean it won't come back. I've certainly thought about it a little bit, and, it might not. And then, I pivoted, well, I'll do a smaller map. I'll do Deer Creek, because nothing else had come out yet, and that one looked pretty good. And right now I've basically got 1 episode in that. And I was upfront with that, hey, this is a let's try series, because I'm going to try some things, and I'm going to see if I find it compelling enough to draw me back. And with everything else pulling me, clearly it has not. And it's not because I didn't find it fun. I just don't have enough time to do all the other things, and it's simpler to jump into, as I found, Train Sim or ATS, certainly, which I was well aware of with ATS, but those are things I can jump in and out of. If I've got half an hour, I can move the truck down the road however far I can get in half an hour, and then pop out of the game and pick it up the next day, where it's a little more difficult to do that with Farming Simulator. I certainly can on a single player, but it just kind of gets a little disruptive, and just the way the game works, at least the way I usually work with it, there's some kind of mental flow there as well, as far as I know I'm doing this job, and then I was expecting to hit the pole, so I went too far. Let me try to get this. There we go. Alright. So that should get me going, but I'm obviously going to have to move over when I get near the position, the silo up there. I'm going to have to move over shortly so that I don't hit that. So yeah, so the Deer Creek, hasn't been progressing. And then Calmsden Farm came out, which was like, wow, this is an awesome map. It's an Oxygen David map. I've always loved his work, and would like to give that a go. And then, there's been a map or two that's come out beyond that I'm like, oh, that might be a little bit of fun. And so I'm starting to get to the point that I did in FS19, where it's like, all right, I've got more maps than I have time. And from a continuity or just enjoyment standpoint, I don't know that I'm going to get a whole lot of folks tagging along on those kind of videos if they start to understand that, well, he's just going to do 1 or 2 episodes on a map. and then he's going to switch to something else. So as life's been going on, that's kind of what has been bouncing around in my head. And there's been the reality of just, kind of getting sucked into something on Netflix that my wife and I are interested in, and has kind of absorbed our time. And as I said, so there is also other competing entertainment that happens, and so that puts us in the reality where I just decided I'm not going to beat myself up and go crazy trying to do too much within FSN. I need to work the farm in some manner, but it's kind of up to me if I just want to work a field versus work them all. There's nothing that really presses me for that other than the finances, and obviously there will be less income if I'm just doing small things, and there's still fees and charges that occur in FSN for a CDL permit that I need to be able to drive my truck, for example, and an herbicide permit to be able to use the sprayer. So, there is cost, and even just running one field honestly covers most of that, because you're talking about basically, I think, it's under $5,000 for either of those permits for, in essence, like a 12 days, so like a year-long permit, or I think they're actually 15 days now that I think about it. So it's not anything that's too difficult to cover, and my thought was, which is what I was trying to do, is if I can get some contractors and I can get a group that I can be assured, we can get X amount of work done, and I can plan that because I have a, pretty good grasp of what is needed on the fields as far as time, because I've obviously been working them long enough, and then I would have been happy to go with that. But right now, for whatever reason, it's just not working out. Even the one individual I had helping me, I asked them, to let me know before the spring if they felt, there was a certain amount of time they could devote to the farm, and had not really heard back with an answer. And so I've got to make the decision that I don't have help, and that's fine, because again, they've got demands just like I've got demands on my time, and there's the reality of anything else. I mean, this is a game, and it's possible work they're doing for other folks, so it might be they're still contracting heavily, but they've just decided, my farm isn't what they want to work on for whatever reason, whether it's the tracking of information that I need, or other pieces. And again, I've got a couple pieces of the field here, including that little spot there, where it's just one of those where at best that's going to give me a liter, if it even gives me that. So I'm just going to keep going, and so you can kind of see, certainly because of the time, my attitude's like I need to get the work done, and it's become more of a task than an entertainment, honestly, because there's just a lot tugging at me for various other things. So, and just today happens to be one of those where it was, I almost got on here and said, I'll wait, but I knew it's not going to get any better in the next day or two. That is my window for planting cotton, so it's definitely in the mode of let's just get it done so that I can do what I was planning to do this year. And yeah, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm coming down with a cold or whatever, but at this point I've probably had enough pauses that it makes sense to talk about it. I keep muting the microphone because I've got to clear my throat, and obviously I don't need to throw that on for you guys, but I don't want to have to keep cutting the video every time I do it, so that's why the pauses occur. And so now you'll know as I go forward too, if suddenly I stop talking for 30 seconds, that's what's going on. Or it might just be that I'm trying to think of what to talk about next, but I'll let you know that as well. So I have noticed also, I think in general, again, that what the reasons are, I don't know, because I just honestly haven't had a conversation with folks, but literally I got on here probably 2 minutes before I started recording and started working, and Swede was on here. I got in, I talked about, hey, I'm here to time sync. He said, yep, we synced, and then he had to leave because he's got to get to work too. And so same thing, kind of over the holidays, he was in here longer. I think he also had a point. Well, I know he had a point because we had talked about that. He was home more because his kids were sick, and so he was staying home with them, and so he was spending time here doing things. But I know even he's got less time. I think he's been lucky enough to get some contractors to help out, and once again, like he's got just a lot of grass work, and if people like to do that versus more the traditional arable farming, I don't have that to offer as a contractor. So that's the kind of things that people are deciding as they play FSN, just like we are. What do they want to do? Where do they want to spend their time? We're getting close to having the seeds empty, so I just need to keep an eye on that. Although, I mean, it'll pop up. I've got that little piece because of the hiccup in the field that didn't plant. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time it didn't work. I don't know why. I wish I could explain it, but I don't understand how Farming Simulator calculates some of that. So, but once again, it's going to be a few liters, and to dance around for that just isn't something I'm looking to do. So we're going to leave that. We're going to leave that other piece up there, and I'm going to try to be careful and have less of those areas I'm missing here. But truth be told, then I'm not going to be running around trying to do that. Sorry about that. That was a bit more involved than in the past. But yeah, let's fill up on the seeds. I might not be able to get through with the fertilizer, but again, for tracking, it's just simpler to do it this way. So these are, again, a lot of the things you don't see when I'm doing the video cutting and so forth. But this is normally how I operate this, just because it's simpler in my head to keep track of where I'm at with things. But at this point, the field should be easier to run because I'm kind of past the point of having the issues that are in, the items that are in my way and so forth. I need to unfold this. Obviously, it won't plant very well in this position it's in. I have hit the button, I promise. This implement just does take a long time to fold and unfold. So let me turn that on, lower this. Now that I'm in the middle of the field, it should not start spewing out fertilizer, but there's no guarantee of that. It looks like I'm okay. And then we'll get moving along and see if we can get this done. Again, we only need to have 40% left, so the question is, do we only have 40% of this field? Because I'll certainly top off before I move to 98. And once again, there will be a cut in the video there, because that's when I'll go off and update my tracking sheets and so forth, and that takes some time and is probably pretty challenging to follow along, because I'm just popping back and forth between screens very quickly. So unless you're like stopping the video, you're not going to really be able to tell what's happening anyway. And frankly, it's just tracking. It's how much seed did I use, how much fertilizer did I use, what did it cost, put it in the proper columns so that I get the pricing, and go from there. So it's not any kind of black magic or anything like that that is terribly exciting to share. And I've done it on the finances video, so if people are interested in that, you can always go look in the how-to section and look for the FSN finances, and it'll give you that info of kind of what I do on the farm. It's not a requirement for FSN to do what I do, but it helps me make the decisions of what I'm going to be doing on the farm, and kind of, goodness, I lowered it too late. I really thought I was okay, but clearly I was not. So haven't had one of those hiccups in a long time. But yeah, the spreadsheet and the tracking I do helped inform me to make the decision of what I have, of, well, I'm just going to keep doing cotton when I'm pressed for time, which seems to be all the time, because it's just the best payout for the time I can invest in it. So, versus the hemp that I tried that used a ton of seed, so obviously, I would have been running back and forth to the silo here probably 4 times in the time I'd been so far. Where right now I just had to stop once, and otherwise I was able to just keep focused on the work, and so therefore the overall elapsed time is a lot less. So we've got 1500 milliseconds on the mini map there, so hopefully we're not suddenly getting into a lag cycle. It could have been that was just where the server was saving. It's one of those speculation things that we always have on FSN, is like, well, if it slows down for a few seconds somewhere, maybe the server was doing a save. And so then people try to determine, well, I see it all the time at this time, and obviously you can't necessarily look at the server time up in there, because it's not synced exactly to real time all the time, or almost honestly any of the time. I mean, you're always off a minute or two at least. And but if you're looking at a regular clock around, you can say, hey, every time at 28 minutes past the hour it slows down. It's probably a good bet that the save is going on then, because I think they are just set up to happen at a specific time on each server, at whatever time past the hour, and I think they just try to stagger them a bit so that not all the servers are doing it at once. But again, I don't really know for certain if that's true, because honestly each server is obviously, in that case, I think self-contained. It's just saving on the server itself, so I don't know that it would put any kind of load on things. Where obviously if you were a company or something and you were doing all your server backups and they're going to some sort of external media like tape, so you can take it off site, for example, you know, you've only got one tape machine that all your servers need to eventually go to. You're not going to do all of them at once, because then you're just going to have this log jam. So obviously you stagger those, and some happen this hour, some happen that hour, and so forth. But this is obviously a little different. It's just an hourly save that happens. And so whenever we have hiccups, that's sometimes if people are talking, oh, what was that? The discussion very quickly on FSN usually becomes, oh, it just must have been the save. Server must have been saving. And we may be wrong, we may be right, we don't know. So we're going to see how close we get here. We were at like 700, I think, on the liquid fertilizer when I refilled my seed. We're now down to 400. I think I've got 3, if I'm going to estimate. It might just be 2, but I think it's probably 3 passes. Actually, I know it is, because I've got that partial one I did, so there's still going to be a little bit of the partial. And that's why it looks like it does, because I'm like, well, it's just a little bit wider than I think it would be for 2, and that would make sense now that I think back to what I was doing back then. Alright. So, yeah, it's going to be just a sliver for the 3rd pass, but which is unfortunate, because for the fertilizer, it doesn't seem to necessarily use less when you're doing that. So I'm not sure. I mean, it'll be what it'll be. If I run out, I'll have to go top it off and go from there. But so, yeah, if you've been just listening along with me, hopefully, you know, that explains my thinking at this point. You know, because I do like the Coast to Coast series. As I said, I do certainly feel like I'd love to get back and do something with ETS. You know, at this point, I'm starting to go on 2 months that I haven't touched that game at all. It's not just that I'm not showing you anything on the channel. I literally haven't touched it since December, and we're now, you know, first day of February's coming up, and actually today is the first day of February, and you know, I still haven't been in there. And I mean, I did do a Coast to Coast run recently during the break here that I had for winter and so forth. I spent a good portion of my time running that, because it was like a 5-hour run in real time. But once again, given how the time I've got to play, that took me the better part of a week to get through. And so you can start to see where and why I'd be making some of the decisions I am. You know, it's just I don't have 8-10 hours a day like I just was able to do at times during the holiday breaks to play. And so that is kind of what's driving it, you know. But I want to be doing that. I want to, at least for now, you know, Train Sim's intriguing enough that I certainly want to try that. You know, those are also longer runs, and that one I don't know that I could save in the middle and then jump in and continue. I'm not even sure that that's possible. So I think on that game, it does require, let's say, if I think the next scenario I want to run is 84 minutes, you know, so I think I need an hour and a half, 2 hours of clear time to be able to do that. Otherwise, you know, I'm going to have an issue. I mean, I know I can pause the game, but I don't know that in the middle of a scenario you can save it. I guess, you know, that might be something for me to try. But, you know, I'd like to do that. And like I said, I've got I'd like to get to do at least keep doing some single player in FS22 so that I stay in some FS22 time as well, while I continue to wait for it to be viable to be here in something that we want to do in FSN. You know, we've had discussions again with several of us on the server. Folks are just kind of waiting at this point, and so I do think we are in that unfortunate limbo state where folks are, alright, I'm going to keep my FS19 farm going, I still want to do some stuff in FSN, but in general I think people are backing off because in their heart they want to go to FS22, but they also know we're just not ready for the experience that we want. We're just not there yet, and it's getting a little frustrating. I mean, to the point where I was having a conversation in chat with one of the other FMs here, and you know, they're like, oh, I'm not doing this because, you know, FS22 is coming soon. You know, we'll be making the move there soon. And I'm like, oh, did you, you know, I thought maybe they saw a map or they saw something I had missed. And they're like, no, I'm just trying to be optimistic that I realize nothing's really changed, but I'm just hopeful it's coming soon. And so I think we've got folks right now in that mindset. You know, and that, like it or not, you know, while I try to, you know, obviously entertainment's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be uplifting and good, I can't help but get dragged down there into the, you know, why does Giants do it this way? Where once again, if they had just made changes in an existing game, you know, kept FS19 and just added productions or whatever, we'd be having a grand old time, and nobody would be contemplating, well, I need to wait, or I'm going to hold off because this or that. It's just so disruptive. And I'm just praying that folks don't get to that next tipping point of, I'm sick of waiting for FS22, and I'm getting, you know, and then it sets in this boredom in FS19, you know, because they know there's a possibility that they could be doing something different, and they're just kind of getting sick of waiting, and then they decide, I'm just going to step away. I mean, we've already had one individual do that, where they've told us, you know, they're just spending a lot less time on their farm until we move to FS22. You know, my motivation is less that to step away. Although I guess, you know, while I did say, hey, I want to do some FS22 single player, I suppose, if I'm being honest with myself, I guess it's not entirely. But let me stop for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and do my checking, and then I'll be back. Alright, I am back. So I'm going to top off the liquid fertilizer, top off the seed, and we'll go do 98. I'm pretty confident I'm not going to have to do any kind of refill over there. It's a much smaller field, obviously, less than 5 acres. But yeah, you know, my thing is more just a little bit of the pull of just a lot of other things in my life that I need to be doing that is causing me to step back here from FSN. It's less the frustration of I want to go to 22 and I can't. Because the reality is, like, if we were on 22, I wouldn't necessarily be able to make any different decisions than I'm making now if I couldn't find contractors. You know, the idea might be, well, if I was on FS22, that's where all the contractors are, and we just don't know if that's the case or not. You know, but if that was, you know, and then suddenly I could get in there, then yes, maybe I could be running a bigger farm in that case, you know, than I am able to here because I can't find contractors because I could there. So there could be a slight difference. You know, but again, it's not going to be substantial because, you know, there's still only so much time I can do. So, I mean, it would be substantial from the standpoint if, once again, I could get any amount of contractors I wanted, then yes, kind of the sky's the limit on what I could get done, because I would just contract it all out if I didn't have time. Let's see. And, alright, I think, yeah, alright, I think I've got the PTO on now. Guess we'll find out. Yep, alright, everything is good. Yeah, I just realized that if I look at my RPM meter, I can see the RPMs are higher. They run at about 1600 RPMs when I have the PTO on versus about 800 when I don't. So, without bringing up the help menu, I can tell what's happening there. So yeah, this should be substantially simpler, or substantially less use of seeds and so forth. Sorry, a couple quick things there. You know, when you gotta sneeze, you gotta sneeze. You know how that goes. But yeah, you know, it'll be less use of seeds, but not necessarily less complex, because as you can tell, there's a lot going on here with turning in this area. You know, which is one of those reasons, like on the other side of the trees here, several episodes back, I talked about, you know, those fields being available. I think it's 99 and 104. Well, I can see them on the mini-map, yes. So 199 and 104 are one parcel. You know, and basically, yeah, we just have the other side of this ridge line as something, you know, that would be needed. And you know, there's enough, as I like to call them, tractor gymnastics here, that I'm not really dying to be doing that there. And, you know, there's other issues. You know, as you can see, there's water over there, so 104 is right ahead of us, and so basically to get to that, you're crossing the stream, you know, trying to get in there, you know, and you can see they're just interestingly shaped. So that is why I did not pull the trigger when those became available, because it's I was gonna not cut the pass down here, but yeah, unless I want to go up on the berm quite a bit, I kind of need it, I guess. I don't know that I've thought about it much. I've just done it automatically, and probably because I ran into this at some point. It's just been long enough where I suddenly had the thought, I'll just turn and I'll just go up and down. But the positioning I'm going to have to do is going to take just as much time as just taking the time to run this down here and then making it a little easier to turn, in theory. Because I think, again, if I recall, I think if I turn without backing up, I get hooked on that tree. So, but, you know, now I can go this route and, you know, have room to align on the row properly and get things planted cleanly. So yeah, you know, obviously getting close to being done here, but you know, if you've sat through all my talking, you certainly understand my mind vomit that I've been putting forth about what I've been thinking about, where I'm at, why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, and if you haven't, and you just jump to the end of the video to see the last few minutes and you're hearing this, well, if you're interested, go back and listen through the center of the video here, and you can partake in the conversation or hear what I'm thinking. I guess we're really not having a conversation. We will if you make some comments, which I certainly encourage you to do. Always love to engage with the subscribers, and anybody that comes and watches the videos, happy to chat with people. I love talking with folks. So but anyway, I digress again, because that's just how I operate. All over the place sometimes, but yeah, so that's where I'm at. Definitely going to be spending less time on this farm for the foreseeable future, just because that's what reality and the hand I've been dealt. So and it's okay. It's not like I'm upset or bitter or whatever. It's the reality of life, and the fact that time is an infinite, and I don't have control over it, and the same thing that everybody else on the planet faces. So, and I'm certainly got the luxury that I get to play a game like this at all, where other people, they probably might not even have electricity in their house, and they might be having to go get food and drag water from miles and miles away every day just to survive. And having the blessing of doing something like this, you always got to keep things in perspective. While I'd like to spend more time doing this, the fact that I get to spend any time doing this is massively different than, honestly, billions of people on the planet. So, woe is me is not really my thing. So I'm pretty good with accepting whatever the lot is and making the best of it. So making the best of it in this case means doing what I'm doing, which is 97 and 98 are all I'm working this year. So our planting is done. It's a little bit sloppy. I had a little bit, a tiny bit left there at the end too, a little dot, but just not going to touch things up, not going to clean them up. But got to go get the the data written down for this, for 98. So I'm going to go hop over and do that real quickly, and then I'm going to go take this equipment back. So I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so I'm back here. So I am going to go ahead and top everything off in the event that I want to choose to use this down at the end later. That at least I won't have to either find a way to refill, or come back up here to refill. So that I'll have a full planter. But now that I think about it, it might actually work. I was going to say, but I still will need to do something, because I'm likely going to do a couple fields. But given the length of harvesting, no, I may honestly just do one field when I'm doing cotton and choosing to do that. But this year I'm going to do cotton. I'm literally not going to do any cereal on the other fields. And it's the benefit of having the records that I'm going to be able to keep track of things over the years, because at this pace, if I'm doing that, a field may lie fallow for, goodness, maybe even 5 or 6 years before I touch it. Because I may also find that I just kind of get in the cycle of, I'm just going to work 97 and 98, and I'm just not going to do the others. I'm not planning on doing that right now, just because I would like to utilize the fields I have in some degree and still feel trying to do some sort of realism in my mental map of, hey, if I was a farmer and I had this time constraint, which obviously I couldn't even imagine that being the case, because obviously if I'm a farmer, this is my livelihood. Like, I wouldn't have a full-time job doing something else. This would be my full-time job. So, that's neither here nor there in that regard, but it's just important in understanding the reality wouldn't exist. But if somehow, I don't know, I had some physical disability that only allowed me to ever have, a couple hours every few days to work my farm. If I determine, okay, that means I can use one of my fields each year, I would still rotate them a little bit. Otherwise, I logically would need to go down the path of, well, I just need to sell off the rest of my fields because I'm not using them at all. And that may be where I start to head over time too, because there is the reality when taxes appear again, they kind of go on and off in FSN. You're paid on the land you hold, or you're taxed on the land you hold. And I think at this point I'm at, and some of it is the land you hold and the money you have. And so because I have a lot of money, I think I'm up on the higher tier at this point. And so my taxes are like $135,000, and those would be, I believe, each game year. Running one field at that point wouldn't work, and because I think, again, I might get $100,000 off the field in profit, but at that point I'm just treading water, and that's just kind of goofy. So but obviously I could keep it up for a little bit because of the holdings I have in the bank. At this point I think I'm up near $8 million. Even if I'm paying $150,000 a year in taxes, I can do that for 10 years and have $1.5 million gone, which, again, in knowing my financial brain, I think I'd probably be having a stroke if I was doing that. So, the reality is probably going to be that it's not going to happen that way. That I would start to sell off property if that started to really truly stay on year after year. But what I'm thinking / hoping is that for FS19 at least, with those things not working, that they may just say, hey, I'm not going to bother turning it off because there's less and less FS19, or turning it on because there's less and less FS19 servers. And so, why go ahead and do all that and get that running again? We'll just do it for FS22. But once again, that I may be totally wrong, because if they choose to get it running again, there's some farmers that might choose to always have FS19 fields and FS22 fields. And, obviously they're not going to not tax one side, because it's frankly not fair. Alright, so we've got things cleaned up. We've got things topped off. Again, the way we were parking things, I at least don't have to try to back this thing in here, which is awesome. Just want to kind of nicely position this so that it's in a good spot. Yeah, that's probably actually about where I had it. I guess it was a little bit further back, but that's alright. Oh. I have the planter running, I think, is what the problem was. So it's telling me to turn off the John Deere. What? I'm confused. Alright, now I am going to pull up the help menu. Oh, well, I'm in the wrong tractor. I am confusing myself. Turn off sower. Okay, why is it not turning off? That's great. Let's see. Alright, well it does let me do that, but it won't let me turn it off. Alright, maybe that'll work. Because now it does say turn on sower. Okay. Oh goodness. I hit two keys next to each other. That's not what I intended to do. And then I jumped into, I think, the FSN truck, which I think is the next thing on my tab list. Alright. Goodness, now I'm in the wrong tractor again. All kinds of fun, right? Alright. Wait a minute. I disconnected. Maybe I disconnected and then in the confusion got back and reconnected. Oh my goodness. Alright. There we go. So we're separated and all set. So, anyway, that's going to be the end for this episode. Thanks for tagging along. Certainly subscribe, comment, like. All of those are greatly appreciated. Keeps me engaged with you guys, lets me have conversations, get to know what you're enjoying, what you're looking for. I do think just from the views that things get and so forth, this is definitely a niche series. It's certainly not as popular as other things on the channel, which frankly is also why, keeping FS22 news going, aside from the fact that personally I want to know what's happening, because the moment things become viable there, they'll become closer to being viable here in FSN, so I definitely want to stay informed there. But the reality is I also get a lot more activity on the channel if I do a new map tour or continue to explain what mods are coming out and so forth. So, some of that also then dictates choices in where I spend my time. But for those who are enjoying the Misty Hill series, I'm still as committed to FSN as I was. Nothing's changed there because FSN hasn't done anything wrong. It's really that Giants is causing the disruption. And, but I'm committed and enjoying the concept of FSN, of persistent multiplayer servers, and, happy to be here and continue supporting it with sponsoring this server and keeping things going. But the reality of all of the other things just means it's going to be a little quieter here on the farm, and these two fields are probably going to sit this way for several years before I do something with them. But yeah, I think when I do serials, I might still do maybe 29 and 30 together, and that's obviously what would go on these next. So that would be the simplest thing next year, is to plant these with something, and then the harvest time is going to be similar, where I'd probably have a couple hours, and I might have 4 hours. So yeah, I don't know, I might still do one field at a time. I'll have to look back at my work time and figure all that out, because I just don't even know that a 4-hour block I could do in one day at this point anymore. So enough of my babbling at this point. We'll just wrap it up. We'll have plenty of time to talk in the next episode when I come back in here to spray the field. And so I will see you next time.